Hey everybody, this is Nate with Dyed for Life. I hope you're all doing well today. Thank you for joining in. Today we're going to go over how to tie-dye a ghost pattern. So I'm going to show you, all you're going to need for the materials for this are some artificial sinew, a couple washable markers, some rubber bands, and some scissors. So before you do anything, you need to make sure to have prepped your shirt. So pre-wash it and soak it in soda ash. We do this with all of our shirts. If you need to see how to do that, please watch one of my other videos that describes how to prep the shirt. And we'll go over the details in that for you. For this, so I always recommend using at least 2 markers. It doesn't really matter what color. I'm going to go, since we're doing a ghost, I'm just going to use, we'll go with these. All right, so my first color, in case you're not the best at drawing, the first color is going to be your sketch, and then the second color will be your finalized pattern. So I'm actually going to use black for that. So before we start, make sure everything is completely flat, laid out. This is very important. If your shirt is not completely flat and symmetric on both sides, then your pattern will not be the same on both sides. All right, so now that we got this, we got it flat. All right, so take the 2 ends, touch like this, and fold. This is going to make your middle pattern, so make your point right down there at the bottom. We're going to draw a line down the middle from the top all the way down to this point. You may not be able to see it on camera. This is a very light color. I'll go over it with the black if you can't see it. First, after we do that, now we're going to draw our ghost. So a ghost is going to have a pretty big round head. It's going to come down, it's going to curve in just a little bit, and then it's going to curve out towards the bottom. And you can make this as long as you want. It can be tall, short. So I'm going to put a point right here. And then we're going to curve to this spot right here. So now we've drawn halfway. So now we're going to draw the other side here, and this is where it helps to be ambidextrous. I use both my hands when I draw, so I kind of switch back and forth from left to right. I don't really think about it. Sometimes to me, I do what feels natural. So if you are just one-handed, just keep it in the one hand. So when you draw, it's easier to point the tip, the direction you're going, and drag the marker. If you try to draw like normal, it's gonna grab. You're gonna have a hard time drawing. All right, so we've got the outline of the ghost right here, and then we're gonna put in. I'm gonna switch to a different marker. I don't know if y'all can see this, so I'm gonna do this one more time in this red. So there's that line. Do back to this line. At the bottom of it right here. Okay. So now we've got our ghost outline. Now our eyes. So eyes usually go good about right here, and the mouth about right here. You can put eyes all up on top or down. It's kind of a preference, the way that I like to sort it out. So my eyes, we have some big, long eyes right here. I'm going to go over, draw this side over here. Try to match it. Doesn't have to be perfect from one side to the other, because what's going to happen is once you draw the whole thing, we're going to fold it in half, and you're going to pick whichever side you like best. So now we're going to draw the mouth, and we're going to make this a big screamer. So big mouth right here, big scary mouth. Now hands are a little harder to do. You don't have to put hands in here, but if you want to put hands, so right around here, we're going to slope out, make a big curve, bring it right back around, just like that. And we're going to come over this side, and we're going to do the same thing. You see how I'm holding this marker, it doesn't feel normal as far as drawing or writing. That looks a little terrible. I'm not as good with my left hand when it comes to drawing. I am mostly left-handed, but I was taught to write with my right hand, so I still do a lot of things right-handed. So we've got our image right here. And I'm going to pick this side to tie. So what I'm going to do is, it's mostly alright, but if you got a lot of mess ups like this right here, and you're not really sure what you need to tie, so now you're going to go over with the darker marker and make sure that they are washable. Okay, right here, ultra clean washable marker. So brand, I do not advertise for the Crayola brand, but the Crayola washable markers do wash out better than other colors. I have tried other washable markers and some of them do wash out, but some of the colors, especially black on some of the cheaper markers, they don't wash out very well. So I have been sure to use Crayola each time, and I like the thin tip markers. They do run out pretty easy because they're thin, but you can get some good detail in with these. Alright, so we're just going to draw, that's the line that we're going to tie. There's no need to do this side, you're just going to pick half because we're going to fold it in half. So now we're going to do the eye, and the body. So we're going to be tying along this line right here. So we're following that line, and we're just going to ignore this line right here. Be sure to hold the shirt still, try to keep it flat. Doing these long lines right here tend to bunch up the shirt if you press too hard, and they'll dry out your markers really quick too, so sometimes you may even need to change out markers in the middle of drawing. Alright, so now we're done with our drawing. We're going to fold this shirt in half, but we're going to fold it so that the front and back side are separate. So you're going to pick up in that middle spot right there, just pick it straight up. Make sure that this line stays as is. Everything else can be moved, but this is important that it does not move. So you're going to flatten out the shirt. And then from here, we're doing what's the sleeve through sleeve method. So you're going to open up the sleeve, stick your hand through, go all the way through the shirt, grab the other sleeve, and you're going to pull it through. And then we're going to line up the seams. So I start with this seam right here, and then make sure the outer part of the sleeve is lined up. Stick your hand into it and open it up. So now that that's lined up, we're going to go up to this seam right here. We're going to line up the two. The one underneath it may not be lined up with it. So as you do that, you're going to feel underneath, and this seam right here is right here. So you're going to make sure you can feel it on both sides so that it's level. You're going to hold that still, pinch here, make sure your sleeve is in it without too many folds in there. So you're going to try to get it as smooth as possible. Pick the sleeve up, and then right here there's always going to be this crease. Okay, it'll start, once you start to do this, it'll naturally kind of create itself. So we're going to fix right here. Alright, so this line that we've got drawn here down the middle, as our guideline that we always start from. So as long as that line right there is where it needs to be, then the rest of the shirt is going to stay lined up. So now we've still got quite a few wrinkles in here. We're going to go through and we're going to start to flatten this all out. So we're going to pull this flap over. You see how we got this big wrinkle here? So if you need to, underneath, try to fix this sleeve a little bit. I feel a good size fold in there. See if we can get that. There we go. This can be difficult sometimes. I feel like I just made it a little more difficult than it needs to be. But now that we've gotten this smooth and flat, just like that. So this will be the front of the shirt. This will be the back of the shirt over here. So now we're going to take our artificial sinew right here. If you do not have sinew, you can use string. There's like kite string. You can use fishing line, dental floss. There's a few different things that can be used here. I use the artificial sinew. It's waxed. What this does is once we draw or once we tie our lines, this line is going to be white. This line will be white, and right here will be white. So it'll help the dye from shifting from one side to the other. All right. So to start, we're going to start right here at the mouth, and we're going to pleat. So you're going to make a pinch, another pinch, and another pinch. And you want these all to be about the same height, and you're going to follow the line the whole way. Make sure that this line always lines up with the rest of the lines. And then when you go around the turns are a little hard because they'll make smaller folds on one side versus the other. So as long as this middle part is as all those folds right there are about the same height off the table, then you'll be okay. If they're too short or too tall, or one is too tall or too short, when they tie up, they'll flip over each other like this. You do not want that to happen. So the goal is keep these flat so that once we put this on here, they stay in place. So we're going to have to wrap this about 3 or 4 times to get it kind of tight. And then you're going to pull it. I usually do about 2 more after this since it's the first one. Sometimes this real hard pull pulls it off. I don't want that to happen. Alright, so now we pulled it real hard. It's locked on itself. It won't come untied. I'm going to move over here to the eye. You're going to start in the middle. Make a pinch. Raise the whole eye up so that this line right here is lined up with it right here. And then you're going to bunch it up along the line. So if you've ever done geode style before, this is done like a geode, except for it's controlled. Instead of just randomly tying off spots, you're now tying a spot along your line. So see how my line is right there? It might be a little off on this side. It doesn't have to be exact. As long as it's real close, it's still going to look just like an eye will. So we're going to take this cord. You want to make sure you have a little slack in it. You don't want to pull it too tight from one to the other, or it'll pull the whole shirt into itself and bunch it in a way that you do not want it to happen. So wrap this around a few times first. Alright, so we got 3 wraps around here. I'm going to pull it just a little bit. I'm going to look. Okay, I'm going to wrap it 2 more times. Alright, now we're going to pull this almost as hard as we can, but not hard enough to make this snap, because it will break. You don't want that to happen. So you can see how my lines, they're not perfect, but it's close. This will be just fine, because this is going to be one giant black eye, and this will be the mouth right here. So now we're going to start right here, and we're going to pleat all the way around in one long pleat. So you make your pinch. You want this pinch to be maybe a ½ inch to 2/3 of an inch, probably about 2/3 of an inch tall. It can be taller or shorter. If it's too tall, you'll lose some detail. But if it's too short, once this whole thing is bunched up, once we go to tie it, trying to tie it will be very difficult. What'll happen when it's too short and too long, the tie can't lock in on itself, and it'll bunch the shirt over itself. And so I try to make the pleats as tall as they can without being overly tall. Because once you make them like real tall, there's no definition in your drawing, and the die has a harder time getting through to all of the layers. So you'll want to just try to keep them right around that 2/3 of an inch-ish. Can be a little short, ½ inch to 2/3. So right here it gets a little tough because you're now having to make the curve. So what you'll do is you'll pull some of this out to try to stretch it, and if you make your line straight and just pinch it towards you, you'll have an easier time keeping these lines here. Make sure this all stays the same height. Around this hand right here is very easy to get either smaller or taller folds, and if that happens, then when you go to tie it, it'll sink down right here, and it won't tie properly, and so you'll end up losing this line. You won't see a line. You'll have tons of bleeding from one side to the other. You'll get all kinds of black ink into this white area that you want to keep white. All right, so right here we got to make this curve back. Okay, so you can see right here is probably very difficult. So you're going to pull. This may bunch up a little bit, it's fine. What's important is this line right here. Okay, you'll see how it moves just a little bit. That's fine. That's enough to not make a difference. But you'll want pretty much the average of your line to be straight. All right, so now that we've gone past the hand, that's the hardest part right there, is getting that hand in there. So I always keep 2 fingers of contact on at all times for pressure. If you let go, it will come undone, but sometimes it'll come undone in ways that you do not want. So I always keep pressure and holds it, so I can even pick it up by hand. You see I've got enough pressure right here. If you can pick it up like this, then it'll tie well. If you pick it up and it just blows out and falls all over, the folds probably aren't the greatest, and you may needed to go through and tie it again before, or fold it again before tying it. And so this is kind of a good way to tell whether your folds are great or not. All right, so we're going to keep going. There's only a little bit left. And so the way that this is right here, there's some natural folds in here. I try not to really fold to go along with those folds. So I use my fingers to push out like this and spread the material. That way it makes it flat, and I can get the fold exactly where and how I want it to be. Okay, so move this out of the way here. We just got a couple more pleats left. Make that curve. Okay. So now the whole outline of the ghost is right here along this line. So we're going to take the cord, make sure to hold this so so that it does not come undone. So see how I can pick this up? Be very careful doing this. If you do pick this up, a lot of times you might just blow out the whole thing and have to redo it again. So come over the top, put your finger on it so it's pressing down, and drag it around to the other side, and then let go with that finger. That helps you slide underneath without catching anything. So if it catches some of this fabric, it's going to move some folds and you're going to have a little bit harder time. Okay, we're going to gently pull tighter with each one. We want this wrapped, I like about 4 or 5, because this is going to be my last one. Okay, so I put my hand down like this when I make this pull. This keeps it from bunching up. I'm going to pull really hard, put a lot of tension on this. Alright. You can see just how tight I made that right there. Alright, so now that we got that, we can cut the sinew. Now we're going to take the shirt. See these folds that are already here? We're just going to use those to our advantage. And we're going to do what's similar to a fan fold. So it's smaller here and it gets bigger over to here. Some people call this an accordion fold, but an accordion fold will have the same size here and here. Since it gets bigger over here and smaller over here, it makes a circular motion like a fan. Okay, so we got that just like that. Squeeze those in. Take a rubber band, fold it in half, 4 fingers, just like this. And you can drag it on the table to where it slides on the table and never grabs the shirt. And we're going to go all the way down the shirt. So fold each one in half and just slide it down the table. You're going to be actively pressing down on the table for it to slide like this. If you push up or anything, it'll grab and you'll push it away. You don't want that to happen. So be sure to press down on the table and you can smoothly glide across it. I'll put a few more on here. Once this gets squeezed in enough, you can start from this side. But if it's bunched too far open to where you can't get the rubber band around it, it can be a little difficult sometimes. So sometimes it might be easier to still go this way. You can even just like that. All right, so now we're almost all the way to the end. And this very last one, typically put like this, and then fold it a bunch of times, and work my way down the tail of the shirt. Now that we got that tied, we're going to go dye it. Okay, so now we're over at the dye table. I've got my colors picked out. I've got this purple right here. I've got a green, and then I've got a really bright green, kind of a lime green right here that I made. That's it's about this much green, and the rest of it filled out with yellow. I got black, and then we've got some Dawn dish soap right here. This is going to be our white dye, so we're going to use that on the ghost itself. One thing I did forget to mention, so right here, after I tied up the whole thing, I did bind up this part, and then this part. This helps keep these concentrated to each other. When they're loose and you dye, sometimes they'll touch. And so this is going to be our eye, this is going to be our mouth. And if these two areas touch this, then your white is going to have black all in it. So I put a rubber band right here, a rubber band right here, and then this is a rubber band that's tightly bound around the whole thing. So your goal right here is just to get this bound together so that it's not all loose all over the place. Okay. So we're going to start off with the soap water. Okay, we're going to add the soap to this whole white, or this whole area that you want to be white. So this is going to be our ghost. The soap helps the dye not spread into here. So once we start adding the black dye to the other areas of the shirt, the dye, once it sits, will start to move around. And so by adding this to these areas, it will help the dye from moving into it, and this area will help stay cleaner. So if you do happen to spill dye on this area, it will dye a little bit. So what you'll want to do is go back over it with this soapy water to try to dilute it out some. So you'll just want to be very careful not to get any dye in this area right here, as long as you want it white. If you want to color this another color, you're more than welcome to add a color here. But just for our traditional ghost, we're going to have a white ghost with a black mouth and black eyes. Alright, so I'll make sure that's all covered right here. It's going to need to absorb in a little bit, so you may have to go over a few spots quite a few times just to make sure that it gets all in there. Okay, so now we've got our soapy water all in our ghost area right here. This is going to be both of the eyes. So we're going to take our black dye. Be very slow and careful right here. If you go too fast, it's very easy to add too much dye, and the dye will start to drip into the soapy area, and you're going to get a ghost that has a lot of black dye in it. As long as you don't put too much, it's okay. It'll kind of look like shadow, but if you do spill a lot into it, it'll spread, and it'll take away that ghost effect. So you don't want to do too much at a time. So I'll move over here to the mouth. I'm going to add some on this, let it soak in a little bit. Okay, and I do thicken my black dye so that it doesn't move around a lot. Just regular dye water does tend to bleed quite a bit, so I use sodium alginate in my black dye to thicken it up. I also use turkey red castor oil, which is it's an oil that dissolves completely in water, and it helps the dye maintain its moisture. It kind of gives it this more of a viscosity to it, where it's sticky. So instead of, it'll help it hold together. But so like if you were just to add too much sodium alginate to it, you can create a gel. So by adding just a little bit of sodium alginate and a little bit of the turkey red castor oil, it kind of gives it just this thicker honey syrupy consistency and allows it to stay. Now you don't have to thicken it or anything, you can still do this without it. I've just found it to be easier. I'll create a video showing how I make this once I get the time for that. We're just going to keep on adding this black here. So we've got both of them pretty decent. As you can see, there's still some white. So we're going to add a little bit more here. And you don't want to add too much because it is going to continue to spread as it sits. And so if you add a whole lot, it's going to start to bleed past this tie into here. As you can see, I got a few little splashes here. So I'm going to take this, just going to put a little bit over it. So one of the reasons we turn the shirt inside out is these dots may just be small enough that the other side of the fabric won't even be able to see it. And so turning the inside out helps with a little speckling like this. I'm going to add a little more of this right here. Okay, so now we got our ghost. We got the eyes dyed and the mouth dyed. Now we're going to do the outline right here. I'm going to set this down for this. I'm just going to add a little bit at a time. You don't want this to bleed. So this is going to be the outline of the ghost. We just want to put a little bit on at a time. I'll put drops like this. Okay. I'm going to flip this over. And I'm going to do this side. And as you can see right here, so I got a little bit of contamination from other dye colors from this table. So after I do this, okay, got a good amount on there. I'll go back over, pour some of this on here. And this will help dilute these colors so that hopefully when I wash it out, they won't be there. Okay, before I set that down, I'm going to grab a paper towel. Go right there. Okay, so I'm going to make some bright colors right around the ghost. What I'm going to do is the green is going to go around the ghost, and then the rest of the shirt is going to be purple. And I made this green right here as a brighter green. So this is about 2/3 yellow, and then a third of this color right here. So you can see the differences in my color green right there. So I'm going to take this, I'll flip this over, and put a little bit of this brighter green right around the edge right here. And what this will do by making the brighter color right here, it'll give more contrast so that it makes the ghost stand out even more. This will give that kind of glowing effect to it. Alright, we don't want to put too much because the other side is going to be purple. We're just going to keep green right here. So now we're going to take this regular green that I have. So this green that I'm using is Grateful Dye's bright green. I like the color of this. It's not too bright, but it's also not too blue. Sometimes the greens have too much blue in them, and they don't have the green color effect that I'm looking for. Alright, so we're only going to go about this far with the dye. The rest of this is going to be black, but before we do that, I'm going to flip this back over, go right back there in the same spot, and this side is going to be all purple. So we're going to come through, just put a little bit on at a time. So I tied this yesterday, and so it has sat out all day, and so it's dried a little bit. If your dyes dry too much, they might not absorb the dye. It'll just sit on top and wick, and it'll beat up and start to drip off. And so if that happens, just put a little bit on it real quick like this so that it breaks that surface tension, and then you can go through and start to add more dye. Alright. So I'm just going to put a little bit on here real quick just to make sure that the surface tension is broken everywhere. I don't want this to pool up and bead. This is not enough dye on here at all. If I was to only add this much dye, there'd be a whole lot of white left on this. And if you want a lot of white, you can leave it like this and just stop, and that's your dye. It'll be purple, green, and white. But I like to add a lot of color and a lot of black to all of my dyes. The black will make the colors stand out even more. So we're going to go through quite a bit here. I'm going to get another bottle that lets more dye come out faster. Those little nose tip bottles, they're good for detail. And these, a lot of dye comes out really fast with these. But once you get this surface tension broken, you come through here and just put a few drops at a time, and it'll start to seep through. Yeah, I was experimenting with dye thickening, and some of my dye at the moment is a little too thick. I noticed with the colors I don't like to thicken it nearly as much. The black dye works very well thickened. These colors are just fine on their own. Noticing it's taking a whole lot longer to dye things when it's thick like this, because you have to wait for that dye to absorb into the material. So there's that. One more bottle here. I think this, and it's going to take, depending on the size of your shirt, this part right here could take anywhere from 4 ounces of dye for a smaller shirt up to, this could be about almost 10 ounces of dye for some of the larger shirts, just for this process right here. It's going to take some shirts can be done in as little as 6 to 8 ounces, but a lot of shirts are going to take 10 ounces or more of dye, and so you could be in the 12 to 16 ounces of dye. So this right here, this is 16, no, this is an 8 ounce bottle, sorry. So you could end up taking at least 1 or 2 of these. I typically go, so this is a large shirt, I believe. Which size is that? That's extra large. So this will probably take about 10 ounces of dye maybe, so a little more than a whole bottle of this to cover the whole shirt. And whenever I do white areas like this, it's going to end up being less dye. So we're going to flip this over, see how the color looks over here. See how it's mostly still white. I'm going to open it up, see how the color has not really come through yet there. So we're going to flip this back over. We're going to keep adding more dye. We don't want to put too much over here, especially where this green is. It's much, it's not as tall over here as it is over here. There's a whole lot more shirt over here, especially with the collar. The collar's running through. Looks like the collar's right here. You got sleeves here, and then there's a few seams that run through here, and all of those areas have more fabric, so they're going to take quite a bit more dye. So we're just going to keep adding little bits here, just a little squirt here and there. I used to work at Jersey Mike's a long time ago, and they used to make us squirt the sandwiches like this, and I noticed it kind of converted over to tie-dye. They had a good laugh about that. Okay, that should be good right there. So now we're going to take some black dye, and we're going to go over the top of this. You don't want to go all the way to the edge, just go to this right here. Make sure to get the edges very quickly. You don't want to put too much on the edge. And then now we're going to quickly cover the whole thing just like this. And I make quick movements back and forth. Just whip the bottle just like this. What this will do is this will put a line of darker purple that goes throughout it. So the shirt will still be mostly purple, but then there'll be a dark purple strip that goes through it as well. I'm going to turn this back over so you can see how the color is starting to show through without actually having to open the folds. Okay, we're going to start right here. We want to leave a little space between the black here and then where I start adding this black so that it has this line. This is what's going to make it look like the ghost is glowing. Okay, so we're going to start out right here on the edge. Make sure to get the white so that it starts to soak in. Don't put too much in one spot yet because it may pool up. Just get right here. Go a little slow once you get over here because you're not trying to put nearly as much over here. We're just trying to put a little bit over this green. Okay. And over here, start to add quite a bit in these thicker areas. I move the bottle around quickly like this so that it hits multiple areas of the shirt all at the same time. If you put the dye all in one spot, it's just going to pool and it may not even go to that spot that you're wanting to go. It's going to take the area of least resistance, and so if you've got like open folds or something, or it slopes and you put too much in one spot, it's just going to bleed all over into those sloping areas. So I like to go quickly, just cover it, be controlled. Make sure to get enough on there. So you're going to go over some spots multiple times. The spot that's the thickest is going to be the spot that goes over the most. And if you want to look to see how much dye is in there, so we can look, so you can see, because all the way to the purple, there's like a couple teeny white specks right there. That's not gonna, we're not even gonna notice that once we tie the whole thing, or once we wash this out. Okay, so now it's all dyed. Get a little quick look at that. See, I got a little bit of extra color on there, so we'll see what that looks like once we wash it out. Okay, we're going to let that sit for 24 hours, and I will have the reveal for you tomorrow. The shirt has now batched for 24 hours and has been washed and dried. If you need instructions on rinsing, washing, and drying, please be sure to check out our video on how to do so. Now we're going to open this up and let you see it. So you see how it's nice and white right here in the middle? Some of that color, some of the black that bled over from the side, this is it right here, but there's not really a whole lot at all. You can see our dark outline here, and then here's the green that we used, and then the purple. So the little bit of black that we put over that purple are these lines right here, and then the black from the back side. I'm going to flip this over, and here's the back side for you. So you can see if you leave a little bit of white, you just get these like this, which looks perfect. As part of tie-dye, every single dye is unique and different. So if you have any questions, please be sure to leave a comment and I'll get back to you once I see it. This has been Nate with Dyed for Life. Please click like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you for watching.